G'day traders, welcome to wrap up of Wednesday the 8th of August. So here we are on the daily charts. Here's the candle we're looking at here. Again, the daily charts at the moment, doesn't really show the full picture. Obviously, yes, we're very much on the uptrend when you look at back from June onwards. We're just continuing to make higher highs and higher lows, and the overall momentum is certainly on the upside. But bringing in the 15-minute charts, quite often talk about this particular chart. It's just a great link to kind of give you a little bit more perspective of what's happening with a longer term outlook, but having a little bit of a closer look at that, and that's why the 15-minute chart works quite well. So here's the particular day that we're looking at here. Opening up the day, you can see the pre-market for the first time this week has really got some momentum on the downside. It started breaking down, and you can see if you kind of draw a line right through this area here, say about that 96 level, there's really quite strong resistance there. So the markets previously reacted to it, they've got down underneath it. Notice the pre-market's got down underneath it leading up to today's action. It's hitting its head on it, and there's certainly some downward momentum. So as the market opened, you can see it popped up, but looking to see if resistance holds at 1336, and that was sort of going to be where we might see the market push down from if it headed that way. When we have a bit of a close look at the 5-minute, 1-minute chart, you'll see that definitely 96 added some resistance and certainly tried to push the market back. From there, it's had a bit of another go. Kind of stretch out there. You can see it had another go, and eventually it's got above that line. And then once we got above that really significant area, you can see almost to the T again, it's now used resistance as support, and it'll do that time and time again. The other thing I want to point out too is this trend line. This is just a great example of vertical support and resistance. So this line was already drawn in. It's not like I've drawn in after the market's topped out here, but as the market's coming up almost again to the tick, it's hit its head on that trend line, and that's where we got this push down from the afternoon onwards. And in the end, we got a bit of a try to go back to the upside again, and you can see now we're pushing up, and it will be interesting to see what it does when it gets to this trend line. But it's reacted really quite well to it. This trend line started all the way back here. We touched it, pushed through, sort of holding underneath it, then got above it here, used it as support in this pre-market here. We've then used it as support, got underneath it, used it as resistance, come back up, used it as resistance. So this trend line just continues to be an area that the market keeps on reacting to. So definitely keep an eye on that on the 15-minute charts. But again, back to the open. Overall, keep in mind 96 was definitely a resistance area, and looked like the market possibly wanted to hold and go lower, especially because some of the other markets were showing some really good signs of pushing down. The Nasdaq was certainly one that was trying to go lower, and it was probably in the end the Russell that ended up breaking up and dragged these marks through the upside. But you can see here 96, it's bouncing, it's hitting its head, it's holding and holding. All it needed to do is at this area here, I was looking for it to come down and start getting some pressure under this sort of bit of a swing point here, and then they could have possibly had a bit of a run on the downside. But in the end, not to be the case. It's eventually got up through that resistance line that it's quite evident on that 15-minute chart. From there, they start to push higher. As far as this area here, picking this sort of as a breakout area, for me there was two reasons why it was difficult. One, obviously there's a resistance area there, but obviously once it does break, it's sort of like the opening of the floodgates. Then once it breaks, it's likely to get a continuation through there. But until it breaks, it's a hard one to see coming. And also the fact is the ES actually led this market to the upside. So like I said, the Nasdaq was on the downside. Russell eventually really swung around to the upside, but as we're going through here and breaking this significant area here, ES was the first one to do it. So what will happen normally is the Russell or the Nasdaq or one of those other smaller indices will do it first, and it's kind of like a bit of a leading indicator. Go, okay, ES is going to follow. There's a particularly an opportunity. This might be an opportunity on the upside, but maybe 1 in 10 times the ES actually leads these markets, and this is the case. This is what the ES did in this particular situation here. But interesting to watch the relationship that goes on between the ES and using the other markets as a bit of an indicator. From there we pushed up high. Now this is the area here where to the tick it's hit that trend line I showed you on the 15-minute chart and started pushing down. So already through here, if you can imagine, there's a bit of a formation here of a rounded top. See how the market and the 1-minute chart will show it a bit better. It's kind of stepping up, it's losing momentum, it's pushing down here, popping back up. Now it's starting to create these lower lows, and we're getting situations where it's creating this reversal pattern. And as soon as it starts breaking underneath this sort of region here, where it's actually gone lower from, popped up, breaks it again, that's going to give you a bit of a change in momentum or a bit of a flow-on effect for the sellers, and especially if you see the Russell and a few other indices also significantly breaking that area, and it actually ended up pushing a couple of ticks, or sorry, a couple of points, 2-3 points past, and believed it was possibly an area that was going to continue on and maybe even head back to the lows. In the end, you can see this 96 level is held, so there's a couple of things going on here. As the market comes down here and gets this bounce, yes, there's momentum from this change of, changing of momentum basically in the short-term area, but what happened is it was then running into that strong support level, which was resistance we talked about earlier, now acting as a support, and that's overruled, and that's where it started to push the market back up from. And then from there we stuck in quite a bit of a range there to finish off the day. It's come down lower again. It's just got underneath that support level, but with no sort of significance. What you need to do, if you want to see this support level being broken, you want to see it really start to push through, then come back, hit its head on it, and push down off it again, and that really confirms then that support has failed, and then again back it comes to act as a resistance level. But at this stage, even though it's got a couple of ticks through it, you still say that this as a level is holding to the upside, and it's got a bit of a bounce off it there to finish off the day. So just to show you on the 1 minute charts, here's this very much a sideways range. We're really sticking in within an area here, and it took up until basically 11:15 until we actually got some sort of trend or some sort of direction. We spoke in the trading room how this area was just potentially could go and break up or potentially break down. There wasn't, there was a couple of markets looking up, a couple of markets looking down. It was sort of hard one to really predict, and with 96 holding as a solid resistance through most of the morning, really unsure where it was going to go. Eventually it did go. And it's come back, and this is where this rounding top started to form, or this reversal formation started to form. So what's happened, you see it's come up here now, all of a sudden see how it's starting to make, it's stepping down, and while it's stepping down it's making lower highs. So it's come in and he made quite a bit of a statement here, popped up. Then once you see it break through this area here again, and you see as soon as it did that, basically that candle there was the one that did it, and all of a sudden there's a rush to the downside. And that if you go and check out the Russell or a few other indices at the same time, you see the Russell is really pushing through this area really heavy. So a great selling opportunity there. An area I thought maybe we could get a continuation, but like I said, it's found that support level at 96 again, and from there it's got a bit of a bounce to the upside, and come back, had a look at it again, and then eventually just finished off with a sideways movement, and we kind of got back into what we've seen a fair bit of lately, and that's a fairly tight moving market. But overall, you can see not some bad movement. Certainly a little bit better action than we've seen on Monday and Tuesday, and hopefully we'll see these markets keep on building like that. That's a wrap up for Wednesday. I'll speak to you guys Thursday.